Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, could be on the hook for $250 million after he made incendiary remarks about George Floyd's death, claiming that fentanyl was the cause. Here's a clip of that comment.
I watched the George Floyd documentary that Candace Owens put up. One of the things that his two roommates said was, they want a tall guy like me. They want a tall guy like me. And the day when he died, he said a prayer for, 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. He said a prayer for 8 minutes. They hit him with the fentanyl. If you look, the guy's knee wasn't even on his neck like that.
The mother of George Floyd's daughter has filed a lawsuit against the rapper for alleging that Derek Chauvin, who held his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes, ultimately killing the 46-year-old man, was not to blame, but rather drugs. The host of Drink Champs apologized for airing the episode featuring Ye, saying, quote, "I am sorry to anybody who was hurt by his rhetoric, anybody who was hurt by his speech. I want to apologize to the George Floyd family. I want to apologize to anyone who was hurt by someone saying something on my platform." That was the host of the show, not Ye.
Right. So people were very upset about this for many reasons, including that this trope, this kind of misinformation about George Floyd dying from fentanyl and not the asphyxiation that we all saw on screen, was a common trope that was spread around the right as there was so much popular support behind the George Floyd protests in the spring of 2020. It seemed like a last-ditch kind of flailing effort to try to rehabilitate police, which in a rare occasion of public consensus were perceived to be guilty and were convicted.
I mean, there were many on the right, many in conservative media who were also outraged. I saw Sean Hannity and Dan Bongino talked about how.
Sure, absolutely. Like I said, there was a lot of consensus. Yeah. However, this certainly wasn't a left-wing attempt at rehabilitating the police, spreading around this particular rumor. So people were frustrated because we've already gone through many cycles of debunking this one. We have had a trial. We have all combed through all of these medical reports, the expert reports, the toxicology reports that proved what caused George Floyd's death. So for him to be relitigating this and to say he's doing it because he saw it in a Candace Owens documentary.
And it's important because the protocol the police took with George Floyd was wrong. You should not have him laying prone and keeping him prone that way for that length of time. If he wasn't resisting, once he's secure, you handcuff him, you put him in the car. Yeah. And it was being called to their attention by onlookers, by bystanders, that he was in a bad way, and they just didn't. So it's beside. I mean, he might have had drugs in his system, et cetera, but that's like beside the point because they didn't handle it the way they should have. Putting all that aside, I don't give this lawsuit much chance whatsoever. It is very. So for defamation, I think it's very hard to proceed when the person being defamed is dead. Like they have to file the defamation. You can have an infliction of of harmful emotional distress on a family member, which is what they'll have to go through here. And obviously, it can be successful, right? Alex Jones. That said, I mean, I'm looking at what First Amendment experts are saying. From them, they're saying there's a very little. This is a hard, very difficult tort to collect on, because there are all sorts of outs for Kanye's position. He's genuinely not informed, saying like he has to have a kind of malice and wherewithal to make a deliberately false claim, and also it has to be a fact-based claim rather than someone's opinion. And I absolutely, of course, the opinion is wrong that he's expressing, but I think it would probably be characterized as an opinion.
Yeah, so part of what was happening in the Alex Jones case was that, one, there was a prolonged campaign
over and over
to
and over
spread
again.
this message, and it was one that he profited off of. So a lot of the damages, the fact that the damages were able to be so high, was because he was sued for violating Connecticut's Unfair Trade Practices Act for profiting from the lies he told about the plaintiffs and the shooting on his InfoWars show. So there's two tiers here. One, even if George Floyd's family were able to successfully litigate a claim, are they actually going to be able to get damages that are meaningful, especially since this isn't even the prolonged kind of campaign that Alex Jones waged against the Sandy Hook family? And two, is there actually liability in the first place?
Right. Yeah, I don't think they would get to that place. I guess it's conceivable that, you could get some kind of settlement before it gets to that point, because maybe he's busy and doesn't want to even go through the rigmarole of a trial, where the family would lose, and then they get some kind of. That's probably the more likely way that they get any money out of him for this. But my expectation is that this is not really right. It's like you said, if he goes on a tour of promoting this, ginning this up to an audience, etc., that might be different. Or if the claims become more absurd or more outside the bounds of acceptable kind of. They did find drugs right in his system.
Yeah,
I don't.
Also, it's interesting
There's some
to focus
room
on Kanye as opposed to the source material, which I haven't watched, but the Candace Owens documentary, where this apparently, this is being spread at this point. This is a profit-generating enterprise, I presume. I saw some mixed reports about how many people actually have seen this film and how much is actually going to earn her money. Regardless, if there is a lawsuit, I'd be interested to see whether or not they loop Candace Owens in that movie.
That's a good point, because if he's just saying, I'd have to watch the clip again for exactly how he phrased it, but if he's saying, I heard from Candace Owens that this happened, well, then he's just, it's like he's quoting someone. You could do that's, you wouldn't be liable for that any more than an objective news source is liable for saying, reporting on what someone else said.
And it's worth saying that I think that not just the fentanyl thing, but there's this other argument about, a lot of people focus on, did he actually, when he was calling out Mama as he was being strangled to death, was he calling out for his mother, or was he calling out for his girlfriend who referred to Mama? These kind of nuances of the debate around George Floyd are raised in Candace Owens' documentary and are used to undermine the kind of obligation that the police officers had to not kill someone and to act according to their training, and to deflect blame at the end of the day. And it is an interesting technique that's being applied here that it's worth with keeping an eye on.
Because it could be all those things could be complicating factors. It could be
they're not relevant.
Right, it's a healthier person, a person of a different physical composition maybe would have survived that same ordeal. I don't see how that actually takes away the police's
obligation is not to kill anybody and not to presume that you have a hostage.
This is not a split-second decision one.
Right.
This wasn't a
it was an
panicked shooting. This took a long time.
And we all watched it, which is why there was such public consensus on it. And it is very interesting now to see, again, another situation where someone's trying to apparently profit off of this tragedy by peddling in this kind of misinformation. I have seen some people laud the documentary for
the Candace Owens
Candace Owens documentary, because apparently she talked to George Floyd's family, who in many ways was truly wronged by the Black Lives Matter national organization insofar as they collected all this money. Many of them are living in pretty dire straits. And I think that's where you get a lot of hooks into people saying, oh, well, she's a good guy, this is a good effort, she's trying to support these families. But I think all of these things can be true, and that we have to be really circumspect about what kinds of information people are trying to foreground to what ends. And I think that's almost the more interesting conversation here than the First Amendment claim, which is, I think, to your point, unlikely to go very far.
The answer to bad speech is more speech. We should, correct the claims he's making if they're wrong. I agree that they are, not sue everyone for everything all the time. Thank you. More Rising right after this. Stay tuned.